Mom, are you sure that today, October 6th, on this board meeting you confirm that your husband, Dr. Emeka, has been messing around with one of our nurses here at work? Mrs. AFRI.CANTALES, the director said. Yes, I am sure. There is video evidence and witnesses who have seen my husband and the nurse sneaking around several times, leaving me all alone despite me being pregnant and requiring more attention since my pregnancy is very complicated. It has not been an easy journey, said Chioma, looking sad and teary. In the bustling city of Abuja, there lived a lovely couple named Emeka and Chioma. They lived happily and embraced their love for each other with so much passion. They loved each other more than anything. In the house, they would always make fun of each other and laugh. Their love story was captivating and very interesting. They were childhood friends who grew to be lovers and achieved so much success together. They gave people hope and chances to believe in true love since they proved that true love exists all the time. People admired their love story. On off days, they would stay at home and spend time together bonding. They would cook together, sometimes bake together, and while baking, they would apply dough on each other's faces and run around the kitchen, chasing each other like small kids while laughing so hard. This was one of their best moments, and on holidays and work leave, they would go on vacations to catch up on their love. Despite them loving each other a lot, they respected each other and valued what they shared. They always appreciated each other and were so grateful that God put them together. Emeka was a professional doctor and specialist. He was best at what he did and dedicated all his passion to his profession. He loved his work and was one of the best male doctors in Abuja. He was a leader of all doctors and nurses at Great Rift Modern Hospital. This was the greatest hospital in Abuja that offered all medical services. On the other hand, Chioma was a nurse at the same hospital and unlike her husband, she wasn't a leader but a normal nurse. At work, they always kept it professional and followed the hospital rules. Some of the nurses admired them so much, and some admired Emeka since he was so handsome and fit. But Emeka only had eyes for Chioma and never entertained any other person. Great Rift Modern Hospital had rules that needed to be followed by all the staff members. If couples worked in the hospital, they had to keep it professional at work and express everything else out of work. No relationships between workers, especially no sneaking around the workplace. People were only to work and nothing else, not to form romantic relations or whatever. Failure to follow the rules would lead to license termination as punishment. In this hospital, there was a nurse named Uju. She was best at what she did as well. She was a surgeon. She worked in the theater with Dr. Emeka. She was like his right hand. They grew fond of each other and became best friends. They would talk about everything, and Uju is also a secret keeper and trustworthy. One day, Chioma felt sickly, so they decided to go for tests at the hospital. When the test results came back, they found out that Chioma was 1 month and a few days pregnant. They were so happy to receive such good news that they had waited for a long time. After some thought, when they got home, Dr. Emeka asked Chioma to take leave, and when she said she couldn't and that she was okay, Emeka advised that maybe she should get an abortion. Chioma lost it. She didn't understand why a moment ago her husband was so excited about the news, and the next he was asking for an abortion. She snapped, and in the middle of the argument she fainted. Then one day at Great Rift Modern Hospital, Chioma's friend, Nurse Amaka, was talking to Chioma at the reception the moment she got to work. The two friends chat for a bit before Chioma resumes her duties. As she was about to leave, Amaka called her back with concern and then asked Chioma if she had a second to talk. Chioma said it was okay. Amaka started by complimenting Chioma's marriage, saying it was good and everyone admired them. She also added that she personally admires how Emeka loves Chioma and cares for her, acknowledging that he is really a good man. Chioma smiled and thanked Amaka for the compliment, adding that Dr. Emeka is really the full package she ever wished and prayed for. Then, Amaka went on by saying that she should be careful because a good man like that can be easily snatched by those admiring from afar. Chioma was shocked to hear this from her and asked Amaka why she would think something like that, adding that Emeka is a loyal man. Then Amaka answered by saying that Dr. Emeka has been spending more time with Nurse Uju lately and they seem suspicious around each other. Chioma looked at Amaka in disbelief and told her to drop the subject as she left to resume her duties. But according to her facial expression, The point hit home, and whatever she tried to do, Amaka's words echoed in her head. She started being overprotective and jealous. She became a completely different person, starting to believe her friend's words. This started affecting their marriages. One day at the hospital, Dr. Emeka was in his office talking to a patient, Elizabeth, a woman in her late 40s. She had brought her son for treatment and came to talk to the doctor since they had known each other for a long time due to her son's illness. This made them friends, and whenever they met they would chat for a long time. When Chioma heard the voices of laughter in her husband's office, and the fact that she had become paranoid, overprotective, and jealous, she moved close to the door to try and hear what they were talking about, and when she couldn't hear anything, she went into the office pretending to ask her husband if he needed anything while being all over him, caressing him and all. This made Elizabeth so uncomfortable that she had to leave. Dr. Emeka asked his wife what she was doing. She has become so jealous, and now distracting patient appointments. Adding that it was not cool and he didn't like it, Chioma didn't seem to be moved. She just smiled and said that he was her husband. Annoyed, Emeka left her in the office and went to attend to the patients. That night when they got home, they got into a fight about earlier, as Chioma tells Emeka that he was entertaining Elizabeth so much. In defense, Emeka says they are just friends. That's why they seem close and friendly, adding that he respects his marriage and that Elizabeth is married with kids and a family that he respects as well. Seeing that they couldn't get on the same page, Emeka grabbed a pillow and blanket, then went downstairs to sleep on the couch to avoid saying many words that they couldn't take back, but as he got to the stairs, Chioma followed him, being dramatic and throwing words, and not long enough, she fell and collapsed. Emeka, who is in shock, calls the family doctor who doesn't live far from their home to come and check on his wife. After she regains consciousness, the doctor tells Emeka that Chioma needs rest and less stress, and if it is okay, she shouldn't strain herself at work since her condition is very delicate, especially with the pregnancy. When he asks what the doctor means by delicate, the doctor said they can talk outside. They went outside the bedroom and locked the door behind them. Then the doctor told Emeka something that shook him. You could see hopelessness, fear, and tension in him. His hands were over his head, then straight to wiping tears in his eyes. Then the doctor tapped on his shoulder to encourage him to be strong, then he left. Emeka got himself together, wiped off his tears, then put a smile on his face and went back into the room. When Chioma opened her eyes, she noticed her husband was not okay. Something about him was off, and on asking him what was wrong, he just said that she scared him when she collapsed and that he thought that he would lose them both. Chioma sat to hug her husband, confirming that they were both okay and that everything was fine. She thought it was just pregnancy symptoms. Emeka tried convincing her to take leave until she gave birth, but Chioma disagreed. She wants to be there to watch her husband due to her insecurities lately, while Emeka feels that staying at home will be safer. She will get enough rest, less stress, and short movements. Failing to convince her, they agreed that whenever she feels some type of way, she should let him know immediately, that she shouldn't push herself too hard, and that the management will totally understand since Emeka will talk to them first thing in the morning. Days went by, and Chioma became more paranoid. She kept walking in on Dr. Emeka's conversations with his patients till some of the patients started avoiding Dr. Emeka. No matter how much Dr. Emeka convinced his wife that this was not helping her condition, she couldn't listen. Meanwhile, Emeka and Uju grew closer. They could go someplace to talk, in empty rooms, corridors, and other areas in Great Rift Modern Hospital. No one understood why they were so close, and most of the people assumed something was going on between them and thought they were having a secret affair. News started reaching Chioma. The rumors spread through the nurses like fire, and when she tried to ask Amaka if it were true, she confirmed the rumors to be true. Chioma didn't take this lightly. She went straight to his office and started questioning his relationship with Uju, but Emeka didn't want the drama at work and told her they should talk at home and respect the place of work. When they got home that evening, they got into an argument again. Emeka tried to explain that they were just good friends, but Chioma insisted on hearing more about the story. Both have emotions. Emeka doesn't understand why she can't trust him, while on the other hand, Chioma feels betrayed and cheated on. And when the argument heated, she fainted again. This was the 7th time she fainted but kept believing it was the pregnancy. After the doctor checked up on her, he advised her to avoid too much stress, pressure, or too much work since it is not good for her condition. then told her it would be best for her to take a break from work and everything that frustrates her, to focus on herself and the baby, but still she couldn't listen. The following day when she got to work, she told Amaka to be her informant, and that whenever she saw something suspicious between Emeka and Uju, she should let her know immediately. She is determined to get them red-handed since Emeka is denying the rumors to be true and claiming that they are all lies. At 7 months pregnant, Chioma was given maternity leave since her condition had become worse and she kept collapsing. So she had to stay home on bed rest until she gave birth. This was for her own good, for her safety, and that of the baby. Meanwhile, Dr. Emeka and Uju got really close. Each time they were together, they seemed to have intense conversations and they would always meet in secretive places where no one saw or acknowledged them. After their conversations, they would hug, long hugs like they were comforting each other. On the other hand, Chioma now stayed at home. One night, as Dr. Emeka and Nurse Uju went to their usual private place in the hospital to have their private conversation, Amaka followed them slowly. She watched them have their conversation but she couldn't hear a word, so she took her phone and recorded them hugging in comfort, and as she misunderstood the whole situation, she sent the video to Chioma. After their shift, Dr. Emeka went home to find Chioma on the stairs waiting for him to come home. The moment he entered the house, Chioma snapped and started inquiring about details about what was going on between him and Uju, but Emeka knew that this wasn't good for her and the baby, so he didn't say a word. He didn't want to argue. Emeka went upstairs, grabbed a few clothes in the bag, then left, saying that he would come back when she was calm, adding that all this drama was not good for her condition, so he took his car and left to rent a hotel. Chioma was left alone, crying, sitting on the floor. Sobbing, she called Amaka and told her that Emeka had finally left her for Uju just because she tried to ask him again. Amaka comforted her and told her to think about the baby and that everything would be okay. The next day at the hospital, Emeka and Uju went to the hospital's backyard to talk, while Amaka recorded them again. As she sent to Chioma, Chioma decided to come and witness this herself, so she boarded a taxi and used the route where she could see them properly, and after seeing them she got so angry. In the meantime, Dr. Emeka tells Uju what is happening in his marriage and he doesn't know what to do. Uju then tells him that maybe it is time he talked to his wife and told her the truth, since keeping it to himself was not helping, it was only worsening the situation and things might get really bad. Emeka then said that he wasn't ready yet, since he didn't have the courage to tell his wife something so sensitive. But Uju told him to gather the courage and do it for her own good and for the good of the baby. She told him to think about the baby. Convinced, Emeka decided he would talk to his wife when she was calm the day after tomorrow. The next day, Chioma couldn't take it anymore, so she went to the board members' meeting in the boardroom and reported her husband, claiming that he is going against the hospital rules, cheating on her, and leaving her alone despite her delicate pregnancy condition. She also added that the rumor had spread all around the hospital and everyone was aware of what was going on. After the meeting, she headed home and the investigation was on, to interview all staff members for clear evidence. The next day, a board meeting was held at the hospital boardroom to discuss the issue between Dr. Emeka and Nurse Uju. Every person Mrs. Wanik, the director, interviewed had something to say. Some admitted to seeing them secretly snooping around, some said they thought they were just friends, while others said that the two were having a secret affair. Meanwhile, that evening, Dr. Emeka, unaware of what was happening, decided to go home and talk to Chioma. On getting home, they sat on the couch to have the conversation they needed to have from the word go, though now it was too late. Chioma already had this attitude on her face while Emeka seemed emotional and scared. There was a moment of silence, then Emeka broke the silence a few minutes later. In Chioma's mind, she thought he had come to ask for a divorce, but Emeka told her to just listen. Emeka started by saying that he had been hoping to talk to her and have this conversation for a long time, but she was in a delicate place. He didn't know how she would handle the news and also he didn't know how to say it. He then went ahead and said that nothing was going on between him and Uju, and if he didn't tell her the truth she would continue believing otherwise. He continued by saying that Uju has only been helping him and comforting him because he has been having a lot of stress and emotional breakdowns. He told her that the first time of her checkup, the doctor realized that her heart was failing, and she needed to get surgery, but since she was pregnant they couldn't carry on with the surgery unless she terminated the pregnancy. This is also why she has been fainting a lot. But when he tried to convince her to get an abortion, she snapped, so he let go because he couldn't bring himself to tell her everything. After all, it might have caused a lot of damage at that point. With time, her heart was getting worse, but they hoped to do the heart implant surgery after she gave birth. And that is all they talk about whenever they are with Uju, planning to fly her out after the delivery of their baby for the heart implant. Since Uju knew a doctor, a specialist from out of the country, Chioma sat there, feeling all kinds of emotions, crying and regretting the damage she had caused. Trying to process all this, Chioma couldn't hold on. She fell and collapsed again, but this time it was a critical situation. Emeka carried Chioma to the car and drove her to the Great Rift Modern Hospital. On getting there, the nurses immediately put her on a patient stretcher and rushed her to the theater. She needed surgery right away. Due to the heart condition, there was a minimal chance to save both mother and child. Emeka waited in the corridor outside the theater as he begged Uju to do everything she could to save them both. Uju said she couldn't promise anything, but she would try her best to save them. In the theater room, the doctors and nurses try the best they can to save both lives. When suddenly, Chioma's heartbeat drops, and the surgeons are in a heist to try and bring her back while Uju is so lost and tense, hesitant and distracted by the situation. They tell her to make a call since only one can survive at this point. Meanwhile, in the boardroom, the meeting is ongoing, discussing the termination of Dr. Emeka and Uju's medical license. And after a long discussion, they came to the conclusion of terminating both licenses. At the theater, Emeka is standing in the corridor, looking stressed and passing around, while Amaka comes out of the theater room, looking stressed and apologizing. She tells Emeka that they couldn't save the baby, but they saved Chioma, and she is resting. Emeka breaks down in tears. By the time Chioma recovers and is discharged from the hospital, Dr. Emeka and Uju's medical licenses have already been terminated, which has caused much damage. 10 years later, Dr. Emeka's child, an 8-year-old girl, runs to the mailbox to pick up letters for her dad, which he doesn't have any interest in reading. They have piled them in a box for the last 10 years. After the damaged career and fallout, Emeka and Chioma got divorced. Emeka moved to a different city to have a fresh start. Now he is happily married and blessed with a daughter who is 8 years old, and working at a pharmacy with Uju. They still maintain their friendship. On the other hand, Chioma became lonely and desperate. She has been writing letters to Emeka for the past 10 years, apologizing for the damage she caused. And especially now that she is dying, she is thirsty for his forgiveness so that she may die in peace, knowing Emeka forgave her. Her heart condition had worsened. Emeka got home from work, and his wife, Amarachi, decided to convince Emeka to have pity on Chioma and at least open the recent letter, adding that she hasn't given up for the last 10 years. She must have realized the damage and feel horrible about it. She begged and managed to convince Emeka. Emeka finally opened up to his wife and kid about everything that happened and how it happened. Amarachi was surprised to know that Uju had stake with Emeka even after all that went down and complimented her to be a real friend. Emeka is then handed the box with all the letters from Chioma, and he reads through all of them. In every letter, she was apologizing for all the damage she had caused. How she ruined his career, ruined their marriage for not trusting him, and most importantly, damaging him mentally. After reading all the letters, Emeka, Amarachi, and their daughter decided to visit Chioma. They found her looking weak, sitting down on the floor, writing another letter ready to send. She never gave up, and all she had left was hope. They all sat down and had a conversation, and finally made peace with each other, then hugged. While Emeka and his new family were about to leave, Chioma thanked them for coming to see her and for forgiveness, saying she can now rest peacefully. She then prayed for them as they left. After 1 month of Chioma living her last peaceful moments, she died a happy soul with no regrets or burdens anymore. Her heart stopped, and she was given a grand burial. Everybody came, including Emeka and his new family, as they sent her off. The end. Let me know the lessons you've learned from this story in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching. Kindly subscribe, like, comment, and share. Until next time, take care of yourselves,